Hey there, sheepdoggers, and welcome to a very, very different video than what I usually do. Sorry, I was just moving something over to the side there. What I usually do in my videos is I just play a game, I do a little commentary, I make it entertaining or funny or whatever I can, basically. Whatever I'm feeling at the time. And you wonderful people that you are, you tend to enjoy them. This time, I thought, I've had a lot of people, well, for me, a lot of people saying, you helped me so much, and, your thanks for the tips and stuff like that. So, regardless of those people out there who probably are better than me and everything like that, I'm going to put this in for anyone who is having difficulty with the game, who hasn't got to grips with it and wants a little help, So we're going to go with, you can see I've even completed a few on Brutal. And I finally did the Necrovirus on Mega Brutal. And I finally did the Necrovirus on Brutal itself. So, yeah. We're going to start with the virus. And I need to just get rid of that because it's in the way. And I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to do virus because it's a fairly easy one to do. I'm going to talk about tactics in general. And this is going to be quite a long video, so if any of you out there are kind of, just wanting a quick one, I've had a few comments saying, speed through everything, and yeah, you may want to go somewhere else, guys. So, my advice, I'll go through all of these as best I can and give you the rundown on how I feel about them, what you should be using them for. ATP boost, mostly I'd use that for nanovirus only. You want to get your DNA bits in. To be honest, most of the ones are a long game. If you're playing on normal or easier, don't bother with this. If you're playing, anything but nanovirus, for the most part, you don't need bonus DNA at the beginning, and you can get more from doing the other ones. Get more DNA from popping orange DNA bubbles. From what I've seen, it doesn't really give you that much more. It's not that worth it. I never use this really. I've used it once recently and it didn't work out for me. It just kind of meh. This one again, it's good in the sense that if I never use this one either really, but if it does in fact give more DNA, then it's good for you preparing to switch into symptoms and really blast that out if that's your tactic. But later on, again, it's not as useful, in my opinion. Well, we'll leave that till the end. This one is just for lazy people, ignore that. And the catalytic switch is the one I tend to use because it's extra DNA. Like, you don't usually get DNA from popping the cure bubbles. And quite often, when the cure is going, is when you want the DNA the most. So I find this is the best one to go for. So next one, this is useful on things where you want things that are difficult to mutate, things that tend to mutate a little less frequently. It is also useful in conjunction with these. We'll get to these with some of those down the bottom. Decrease can be useful with, for example, virus if you're having a bit of difficulty, especially if you don't have this bonus DNA. Or cost to devolve don't increase. If you don't have those, then the Creationist can be very useful to slow things down. Harder to cure, I use this one a lot, especially for things like nanovirus, where when you get to the harder difficulties, the cure can be a real bitch. Mutate Transmissions, easier to cure. This is useful, and I tend to use this because it means you don't have, you can get some extra things that are really useful, like something that you wouldn't usually take, for example, blood, which helps in poor countries. You wouldn't necessarily take that because usually it's fairly easy to spread there, but it can just give you that little extra boost. And abilities, also very, very useful. Abilities tend to be where I want to spend the most points and where it's the most expensive. These all are fairly simple. Air, sea, cross a border. I like cross a closed land border because just in case, or increase infectivity. I'm going to go with that for this one. Am I? We'll go with... Oh, actually, what we'll go with is... We'll go spread by land. I tend to go with extremophile. These all can help. For example, if I was to say start in a very arid place and I take the bonus in humid, that'll help me in a lot of cold places. And I'm going to start somewhere arid, so I'm going to go with hydrophile this time. Cold doesn't necessarily mean humid. I mean, South America's humid as well, but you have to have a good think about it. So bonus DNA when devolving, that's useful. Cost to devolve don't increase, that's useful if you're going to be if you want to be staying hidden. Symptoms don't increase but easier to cure. Ability don't cost but easier to cure, and transmissions don't increase. So if you're thinking to yourself you're going to be using a lot of transmissions, what you can do is you can do mutate transmissions, easier to cure. Well, for example, mutatability is easier to cure, and symptoms don't increase. That can really help you. For the virus, I would suggest probably the symptom one. For the other ones, well, it's you have to find your own personal play style. You know, it's not kind of like massively tactical, but you will find slight differences in how you prefer to play. So what we're going to go with for the virus is we'll do symptom costs don't increase and transmute ability can mutate abilities. So we're going to go on normal just purely because it'll make my life a little bit easier because I'm trying to explain and everything. That was during my stream we had a zombie plague that we named Porn because it's very hilarious to say, oh, look at all those porn zombies running around. For virus, we'll go with Cyrus, because I'm not particularly feeling inventive. Okay, so let's talk about start positions. For nearly everything, you want to start somewhere which isn't rich. Because you won't be spending it immediately on, you know, the ability to the drug resistance ability. Saudi Arabia, I will show you, because you may not have watched my more recent videos where I found out how good Saudi Arabia is. Saudi Arabia is always a safe bet. Later on you may want to challenge yourself with other places. I suggest Russia is a good place. You know, West Africa, Brazil, China, you know, anywhere with a high population and an ease to spread. So basically, here rural, hot. Here rural, humid, hot. Here city. You know, and okay. So when you're starting in Saudi Arabia, when you start in a place, it's either going to be hot or cold, and that's the resistance you're better against. So if you start in Saudi Arabia, you're going to spread quicker in hot places, and it's going to be very hard to spread in cold places. So, for example, all these ones up here. Now, the hardest places to hit with this is Greenland, because it only takes ships, and only a few specific ships. For example, Russia, some of these ones up here, only a couple up here, basically, and you want to spread up there if you can. You should be fine with Iceland. Canada is the hardest one to get, especially in the harder difficulties, because it's only rich and cold. So it's a very hard one to do, because you can't do rural, you can't do, you know, humid or anything like that. None of that helps. Whereas like Russia, you know, you've got humid and rural and stuff. This one, it's just cold and rich, which means that you need drug resistance to and cold resistance to, if you have a high lethality, to spread enough there, regardless of how good your infectivity is. So, yeah, and also if you start, like, for example, Russia, somewhere cold, the hardest one will be Australia, because it's hot, rich, and city, and here it's humid, rural, and cold. They're basically opposites. So even if you hit Australia, you can die out. Also, for a certain amount, New Zealand, in the harder difficulties, will randomly... New Zealand and Canada will randomly kill you know, all the infected and suddenly be uninfected again. It's very annoying, so keep an eye out for that. So let's go. There we go. So here we go. We're going to go as slow as possible so that I can explain. And the first thing you'll be wanting to do, this is just a very basic template of your plan. The first thing you want to be doing, aside from obviously building up DNA and waiting, the first thing you want to spend your DNA on is Air 1. Because not only does it mean you can spread by air, but this place is arid, which means you spread quicker here. So you get to 9 DNA at some point. Or not. Let's just very quickly put the music up. I tend to have my own music going. Ooh, down a bit. I tend to have my own music going when I stream, so I turn the music off, but we'll have the music going, so there's a little something in the background, and it's not just silence with me talking and the occasional click. There we go, 9 DNA. Okay, so you want to go Air 1, especially on the easier difficulties. You won't need any of these almost. You got Air 1, Water 1, Air 2, and leave it at that. That's the first thing you do. In between that, depending on how quickly you spread, on the easier difficulties, obviously you spread quicker. But you should gain DNA quicker as well. A little bit of a drink. So yeah, you can see we're starting to spread. Again, I tended to only get, like, regardless of the orange DNA bubbles I popped, even if I had the bonus to popping orange DNA, I'd only get 1 or 2 from popping them. And I find it's better to, yeah, of course, it goes up as you spend more. So again, you know, if you do have the option of decreasing the cost of something, you really have to think about where you're going to be spending it. And myself, you know, especially with the easier versions, I'll be spending most of it on symptoms once I've spread enough. There is a certain element of luck in this as well. So you must remember sometimes if you fail, give it another shot, you might get luckier. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Okay, so nausea symptom. Costs 3 to devolve. We're going to devolve it. There we go. And we'll keep going. I don't want to be spotted this early if I can avoid it. A little bit longer and I should be fine. On the harder difficulties, you may want to consider having either cost to devolve doesn't increase or a bonus to devolve, especially with things that mutate a lot, like virus. Personally, I wanted the symptom doesn't increase, because for the harder difficulties, you know, it's worth spending a little DNA so you don't have to spend a giant amount. And yeah. So we've got that. We need 16 for that. Let's just get drug resistance now, because I have a feeling we'll start spreading by air fairly soon anyway. Maybe not. It might take a little while. It's always best to be prepared. So with Saudi Arabia, this is the place where you want to spread by air. You know, if you want to spread by air, this is the place to go. By sea, I'd say Russia's not a bad bet. You do grab these too early, but it's harder to reach down here, especially the bottom right. Brazil's not a bad shout, and West Africa's not a bad shout. I've never tried South Africa or Egypt. To be honest, if you start in Saudi Arabia, you basically start in Egypt. And yeah, for the beginning part, it is very much a waiting game. You have to wait to spread, and if you're lucky, you'll spread to a few other places as well. While we're waiting for a little more DNA, we'll talk about Russia. The reason Russia is so good is because it's cold, which means you get a bonus against Canada, and Canada is, in my opinion, the hardest place to hit. Additionally, you can see how many places it borders. There we go. All over the place. You know, it really does border. Let's just have a quick look. You can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then, you know, then you've got the additional port that goes to all of these over here, and also to these two as well. So it's very, very useful. Also talking about, you know, what's helpful and etc. If you, well, we need how much for this? 16. Okay. There we go. Also talking about what helps. With this one, you get Madagascar fairly quickly by sea. So again, Madagascar, the islands that you really, damn it. I might just leave Insomnia there. We're going to start spreading by air quite quickly. And one thing, especially in the harder difficulties, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to stay hidden for a long time and then suddenly appear before you've got everywhere and before you've spread enough. So the longer you stay hidden, the slower you spread. And also you hit Canada earlier from Saudi Arabia, which does help in the long run. And you can see, you can follow these red lines basically and see exactly where, you know, it goes in so many places. You can hit too many useful places. You know, if you're just wanting to win, you know, if you're having difficulty with somewhere, Saudi Arabia is the best bet. So what we're going to do is we're going to up the genetic hardening, making it harder to cure. We haven't been spotted yet. In a regular game, I wouldn't have spread this much, for example, in Saudi Arabia, and I wouldn't have a disease. You know, I wouldn't have a symptom. I would have been spotted with a symptom. So they spot us, but we're not that serious. They don't start hunting us down. They don't start closing off yet. The yet is important. We need enough time to spread. With that in mind, the enough time to spread in mind, I'm thinking about going for ship 2 as well. There we go. There we go. Saudi Arabia starts work on a cure only because it's completely infected, and it's going to be the only one for a while. But I think the best thing to do, we need 18, okay. Best thing to do is going to be getting boat 2, because it helped me in the humid countries, cold or not. And it's 18, not 16. There we go. And yeah, it's just going to help that spread a little bit more. Okay. You can see the colder places are spreading. It's spreading a lot less quickly. The rich places too, because I haven't got as much drug resistance. But you know, that's for a bit later. For now, we want to focus on other things. There we go. We've hit South America now, which means that aside from a couple of trouble places, we're fairly fine. The ones that you really want to look out for, as I was saying before and I got distracted, are Madagascar, the Caribbean, Greenland, the Philippines a fair amount can be a pain in the arse. We've already got them. And New Zealand can be as well. But New Zealand and Iceland are slightly less dangerous because they do have airports, and if you focus on air, you'll probably hit them fairly early. Probably. Not definitely, but probably. And what we want now is bird. I'm hoping to spread a little bit up here, kind of into kind of Eastern Europe, just purely because it will up my chances of hitting Greenland. The next thing we want, because we're spreading pretty much everywhere, is cold resistance and another cold resistance, 16 DNA. We want 2 cold resistance. There we go. This is the result of bird, basically. Bird helps you spread across land. It's harder with closed land borders, but not impossible, as far as I know. Cold resistance 2, beautiful. And what we're going to do now is, because we've hit almost everywhere, and they haven't started, you know, if this was brutal, especially mega brutal, it'd be a lot more difficult. They'd maybe be starting to shut things down, and I might miss my chance to spread into Greenland. Possibly the cold resistance should have come earlier, but I got distracted by the fact that this is a little easier than it usually is to spread. So what we're going to do is... See, this is the problem with abilities. Certain things like cold resistance and drug resistance get really, really expensive. And even your abilities like these are quite expensive. So we're going to up the viral instability. This should help us getting symptoms, and it can also get us abilities. That's not what you want, but okay. So this is going to help us spread everywhere. You know, which they're just it's just unlocking these things. Hopefully, it will unlock. Yeah, heat resistance isn't good, but it isn't bad. Any kind of ability is useful at the end of the day. What we really want, though, is drug resistance or vomiting symptom. Not exactly what we want. Tell you what we will do. We will get this and this, pneumonia. You want pneumonia because it helps you spread in the cold places. And we'll also get cysts, increase infectivity, and hypersensitivity. Rich regions, particularly vulnerable. So let's talk a little bit, because I just unlocked. Basically, in this bottom left area, you have things like this, significantly harder to cure and can be lethal. They're not very lethal, but if you're having problems with people curing you, basically, too quickly... let's see, we got heat resistance. We don't want it, but... Well, we don't need it, but we're not going to complain at this point. Well, I'm not going to complain. And there you go, they've started shutting down the airports and things. Hopefully, it takes them a while. It takes them longer to spread to stop spreading the sea, the ship ones. So usually you're lucky enough to set off a couple of boats, and you can usually hit that one. It does increase. It does actually start being lethal, which could... It's not going to be a problem for spreading, even I don't think in Greenland, but it could get them a bit more serious about curing us. Well, we've infected everywhere, as you can see. We've even, you know, this is normal, but we've infected everywhere except for Greenland. So what we're going to do, unless that's going to... It's not going to. What we're going to do, just to make sure, is... No, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. Pulmonary fibrosis is that one. It does increase the lethality. This is the one you want to avoid, especially on harder difficulties, until you're ready. See, it's not that expensive, even though I've put a fair amount in. It's not that expensive because I haven't increased the... I've got the symptoms doesn't increase. Which makes it perfect, because if you're being cured heavily, you can, and you don't have the increase, you can actually get this and kill off a fair amount of people until your disease is almost burning out, and then you can take it, you can devolve it again for a little cost, and maybe take something with a bit less lethality. Inflammation, that is that one. Okay, so the places you want to go are like this here. That's a good one, kind of up to there, because that isn't that fatal. Paranoia is a good one, so we're going to get that. And then you can go up this way. It makes it hard that you've got insanity over here, which can be really good to stop the cure. And then over this way, I don't tend to use that. Over here, you have kind of dysentery and stuff. What you want available to you, we're going to grab that as well. The paralysis, significantly harder cure, very, very slightly lethal. You got the coma, again, makes it very, very hard to cure. So you want these two available to you when you start rolling out your symptoms. And the other thing you want, you got rash here, sweating, dangerous in cold countries, but and then skin lesions, also not fatal, very, very infective, very, very infectious. There we go. You avoid the fever, which has high lethality. And then the one thing, when you've got everywhere and, you know, people are starting to die a fair amount, necrosis. This is great because dead people still transmit the disease. You know, they die, they still die. And this is the point where, you know, if you haven't spread enough, if you don't have enough DNA, you start getting points from breaking these blue cure bottles. It's enough usually to assist you in winning the game. Thank God. Okay, so we have Mutated Seizures, which is that's not too bad. We're going to give it a little bit of time to start spreading in Greenland. And as you can see, Canada and the US still having difficulties. Now, in Brutal, this could be a problem because the cure does go a lot faster. So what you would probably want to do is have saved up, and then at this point you can go total organ failure, you can see massive lethality, possibly necrosis before. So you go necrosis, we're going to get necrosis anyway. You can see hemorrhage shock here, high lethality as well. If you need the massive lethality, but necrosis, it kills people and keeps spreading. Mutated drug resistance 2, beautiful. So that's going to really help here. You can see how much it'll jump, and it'll help in Canada as well. The thing you need to be careful of is if your lethality here is too high, you will literally burn out in a country if you're not careful. For example, Greenland. If I had a total organ failure, I might, you know, all the infected people might die before they can infect everyone else. And that's one of the things you really need to be careful of. Later on, you won't have this much money to, you know, kind of bandy about, but we do, so we'll cut back that part of it a little bit. I'd say for the most part, abilities or symptoms are the thing you're going to be spending the most money on, and they're the things you're going to have to be most careful of. You know, you don't spread this quickly. Well, this is a good one. We might be able to see. So you see with total organ failure how quickly the dead people are dying, even though so few people are infected. Without necrosis, this would be a lot worse as well. You know, the dead bodies can still infect people, so it keeps spreading quickly. Which is why necrosis is so important if you've got a high lethality. Let's get insanity, dysentery, why not? I will grab that, and how much do we have? 33. We'll hold off for now on anything else. I just like to hold a bit in, but you can see how quickly now the deaths are going up. The only place not completely infected is Greenland. Until now. So yeah, there you go. The whole world is infected now, and we've got enough lethality that it really doesn't matter. You know, the cure doesn't matter. We're just going to burn through humanity very, very quickly. I can spend all the rest on everything, all the high lethality stuff and everything else. So this is what it's like if you have... Can I get full? No, not full. Almost full. So this is, you know, my infectivity is giant. But the thing you need to remember is it's not just about infectivity. You know, if you don't have good cold resist, like say you have cold resistance 1 because you can't afford the DNA to put cold resistance 2 up. At the end of the day, there we go. That's everything. Let's pause it for a second here. At the end of the day, if you don't have cold resistance 2 and you started in a hot country like this, if you have total organ failure, like that is almost enough by itself on the harder difficulties to burn itself out in Canada or Greenland before you infect enough people. So you know, if you and you will often hit these places later. that's fine. You will often hit these places later, so at the end of the day, you will burn out in these places if you're not careful. You'll kill all the people infected before they infect enough people. Heat resistance ability too. So you can see in the early difficulties, I would advise going only water and air, maybe with one bird. All the rest, unimportant. Later on, you want to tailor it to where you start. You know, maybe you want to get, if you're in a rural place, you might want to get rural, you know, livestock 1, and spread quicker there to begin with. Maybe take the ability to get points for DNA from devolving, and then devolve it later for symptoms. In the abilities, I'd say if you start somewhere cold, go hot. If you start somewhere cold, go hot. Apart from that, you don't really need to do both. And the environmental hardening, I wouldn't advise because it's so expensive, especially with your abilities, and possibly if you're not using that many abilities. I tend to go only drug resistance 1 because I tend to be able to complete it for the most part without without drug resistance 2. But if you've got the spare DNA, it is worth it. It really helps you spread quicker, especially in places like Canada, US. Genetic hardening, definitely, especially on the more difficult ones, because the slowing down the research speed before it gets going is crucial. These genetic reshuffles do pretty much fuck all, especially later on. You know, this is 30 DNA points. When you get to that point, when you get to that stage, you'll want to spend it on symptoms, unless you have the abilities cost less, which is a decent idea. But I'd say, you know, probably best to focus on symptoms, seeing as it really helps you. This kind of area here on the top right is great for infectivity, and you know, poor hygiene, cold countries. These ones here, it helps in cold countries as well. These ones in rich countries. This bottom left here is a certain amount of lethality. You want to wait a bit to use them, but it does make it a lot harder to cure. This kind of like middle area here is high lethality. Over here is mostly infectivity. Top left again, infectivity. My advice is to go when you get discovered, as you will get discovered. Don't leave it too long. If you leave it too long, the cure will just shoot up, and you have to be very careful of that. Because it does seem to kind of adjust its speed depending on how long you've stayed hidden. So my advice is to get discovered after you've infected enough places that you're probably going to get everywhere. You know, you need to judge it for yourself when to go. But my advice is to go with these ones here first, and then work your way down towards necrosis. Work your way to total organ failure. Once you've got these two, you can go straight to paralysis, harder to cure if you need to. And if you later on get insomnia and seizures, insanity also really helps. So yeah, there you go, guys. That is, you know, this kind of tactic I used here this is just very general for all of the regular. I'll take you through them, but for all of the regular plagues, there are also the Neurax worm and the where's that going? There is also the Neurax worm and the we might be able to, before the world dies. I'm not sure I'll have enough money, enough DNA. No, it doesn't look like it. Okay. Yeah. There is also the Necrovirus zombies and the Neurax worm, which have very different layouts and how things work. And I'm not as good at them. The Neurax worm isn't too bad. I've managed to complete that on, there you go, wiped up the world in 533 days. And the cure progress was really low. Virus, if you want practice, go with Virus. It's easy once you get the hang of it. I still have to complete it on Mega Brutal, but you can see Neurax worm, Parasite, Prion, these all kind of suit my playstyle. Which means that, you know, my playstyle is trying to stay hidden as long as possible, which I found doesn't work like when I use bacteria, Even on brutal, it was very difficult. And the fungus, oh god, the fungus and the nanovirus are completely not my style. So yeah, if you guys want, I can do more in depth on the Neurax worm, on the Necrovirus. If you're interested in it, chuck a comment in. You know, say I'd love to see the Neurax worm, the Necrovirus. You know, your tactics on those. Also, anything else you have, any specifics. If you just put it in, you know, you need to know more about the fungus. You know, my kind of more specific tactics. I'd be willing to do that. I'm not going to do any more videos where I just, you know, sit there and try and beat these ones. I do stream it now, twitch.tv/sheepdog42. I will be streaming this on occasion there, if you're interested in watching that. And if you're interested in watching that, that's those streams. So yeah, aside from that, you know, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it's been helpful. In regards to kind of chucking this video a like or subscribing, you know, I'm not completely done with this series. You know, when they release more things like speedrun, official scenarios, I would love to do some multiplayer with, you know, a mate or something. A friend, for those of you who are not aware of what that means and think it might mean something else. Yeah, at the end of the day, I will be doing more, but it might not be for a while. So, you know, chuck the video a like if you enjoyed it. Brilliant, thank you. Aside from that, if you're thinking about subscribing just purely because you want to see more of this, I do have more of this on my playlist. But don't feel like, you know, subscribe because you enjoyed this video or because I have Plague Inc. You know, check out my other videos, see if you like them. If so, lovely. I would love to have you on board the channel and watching my videos. So yeah, guys, anyone new, welcome. I appreciate your views and your support. And yeah, there will be a couple more coming, probably. I'm not 100% sure if I'll do the Necrovirus or the Neurax worm. I probably will, but no promises, guys. I do have a lot of videos to do, and while these ones are really popular, at the same time, I do have some, you know, some viewers who like my other stuff I've done, and I can't let them down either. So, guys, thanks for watching this video. Plague Inc. Evolved has been beautiful for my channel, and all of you who have joined me off Plague Inc. and found me and enjoyed me. I'm so glad that that you are now here with us. So, enough rambling. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.